Hi, everybody. So I'm really happy that we are here to talk about the latest episode of Doctor Who. And this episode is called Thin Ice. And this is the third episode of season 10. And I'm joined by my friend Jonathan. Do you want to say hi?
Hello.
Yeah, and so I was a little bit nervous going into this because I didn't like the last one all that much. It wasn't my favorite, and so I was thinking, oh no, like what if I'm just not into this show, and then everyone's gonna think I'm a negative Nancy, and but then we get to this episode, and I really liked this episode a lot. I thought this episode was very well written and very entertaining, and I enjoyed it the most out of the 4 episodes that I've seen of Doctor Who. So, what was your overall sort of response to this episode?
I really liked it. I thought it was a huge improvement over last week. It was a great story, great things that happened. I liked the creatures. It was a huge improvement. Yeah.
Agreed. And it was just, I thought the dialogue was very well done, very well written. And and you got some interesting character moments. So we'll talk about all of that. But yeah, I had the same experience. So, okay. So in this episode, we go back to 1814, London 1814. And there is this, when they first arrive, Bill says to the doctor, this is a problem. And he's like, why? And she says, because slavery is totally a thing. And I was curious, how did you feel they handled that kind of racial dynamic in the episode?
Really well. It's not something they do too much because he's only really had one other black companion. So, and it wasn't really touched on almost at all in the one episode. Well, she had more than one of them went back in time, and one she actually became like a servant for a while. Like,
okay.
They were undercover, but the one they went back to the time of Shakespeare, and he basically told her to just act like she owned the place, which is if this was real, that would not be a good piece of advice.
No, that's true.
But it worked out in that case, so I guess they could have handled it a little better in that one, but I felt that this one, it was a lot better handled.
Well, and he does make her make the choices, but not in a way that jeopardizes her safety as far as slavery or anything like that. And so, yeah, I thought they handled it well too. I thought it was good. And so you've got this creature under the ice, and there's this frost fair as sort of the setup. And did you like kind of, I guess, the setup of this carnival and this fair and kind of the like stepping onto the ice and sort of this initial setup?
Yeah, I liked a lot of it. I will say though that at least the creature under the ice, the ultimate reveal of what it was, felt very similar to a different episode a few years ago, which was my problem with the last episode. But I feel like they did this one different and better enough that it didn't bother me. Like the last episode, there was some similarities. It didn't seem to improve upon anything. But this one I think did. So it didn't bother me that it was like a repeated plot point.
Okay. Well, that reminds me, you wanted to talk a little bit about something from last episode. Sorry, I should have done that at the beginning.
Yeah, the last episode you were talking about, In the Forest of the Night, was written by the same author. And I thought about it, and I mentioned that it was part. I thought it was part of a 2-part series, a 2-part episode. But I looked it up, and it was not. In the Forest of the Night was another episode that I kind of feel was really similar to Smile, because it was another episode that was really visually beautiful, but ultimately kind of forgettable.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if that was just like, maybe it's a hallmark of this writer. He imagines these amazing settings, but the story doesn't quite match up with the setting. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting once I realized that how it was similar in that way.
Okay. That makes sense. There's a lot of really visionary writers that it's kind of like that they're so kind of caught up in sort of the setting and the fantastical world building that they kind of forget a little bit about the story.
Yeah.
I actually like Avatar, but a lot of people have that problem with Avatar, is it looks beautiful, but the story isn't quite that compelling. So yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, I think it's for a show that's been around, even just this modern part of it, that's been around as long as Doctor Who has. I think it's probably understandable that they would have a certain degree of some things, repeating and similar, as long as it's just not too on the nose with things. So
it was similar but different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, the Doctor says about time travel, because Bill asks, like, what if we ruin everything? Like, what if we spoil? What about the paradox of time travel? And I thought it was interesting. He says, it's just behave exactly like your every day of just behave exactly like every day of your life. The only thing to do is stop worrying about it. What do you think about that?
That sounds like something he would say to change the subject.
Does that feel consistent with Doctor Who as far as how they treat the paradox of time travel?
Mostly, because sometimes they'll treat it like they can't do certain things because they don't want to jeopardize any specific thing that has to happen. And other times, it doesn't really matter. I guess sometimes I think it's just based on who's writing the story.
Okay. Yeah, I wondered if that was kind of just their way to sort of be like, we're not going to deal with that. We're taking that off the table.
I think most of the time, if they're in a situation where there's no huge culturally important, historically important thing that's happening, I think he's probably going to say just it doesn't really matter. But if they're in danger of like absolutely changing something, then he would have them take a step back or something.
Okay. So we get this, the sort of the plot really starts going when this little boy falls through this orphan boy falls through the ice and is captured by this creature that's underneath the ice. And Bill is horrified about this. She is she has a very hard time with this situation. And she even asks the Doctor, like, have you killed people? How many people have you seen die? And she's just very, very upset. Like, what do you think about that?
I thought it was a really good human reaction from her.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, once in a while, you feel like the companions aren't fazed enough by things happening. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They kind of take everything in stride. Not all the time, but sometimes they're written really well. But this one was one time when I thought it was a really well written scene. She behaved like a normal person would.
Well, and if you think about that first episode, like, she was somebody who was very like conscientious of other people, and she noticed people when she's serving the lunch line, noticed people, like the weird water girl, stuff like that I think that sort of works within her character, that she kind of, I don't know, is that, sort of emotional and that concerned. And the Doctor says, he says, yes. He says, I care, Bill, but then I move on. He says, yes, I've killed people. Don't, and then she says, don't tell me you moved on. What's happened? What happens if you don't move on? Oh, no, the Doctor says, what happens if you don't move on? More people will die. I'm 2,000 years old, and I have never had the time for the luxury of outrage. That was a very, very well-written quote or whatever. Well-written thing, well-written dialogue. Because if you think about it, like, if you're starving, you have one thing on your mind, the fact that you're starving, and there can be like horrible things going on around you, and you're going to be most likely just focused on the fact that you're starving, and so it's when it's when we're not starving and when our needs are kind of met is then when we have the luxury to be like, oh, look at that unclean air, or look at that, we have the sort of the luxury for this outrage. And I thought that especially in the modern era where everybody's outraged about everything, it's like if somebody says something wrong or somebody, you've got to apologize, and I'm outraged. And I don't know, I just thought that was a great quote. And what did you think about that with the doctor, kind of what he said there about moving on and outrage and all of that?
Well, I didn't read that much into it, but I just thought it was interesting that he said he never had the luxury or time for the luxury of outrage, when he very often takes time for the luxury of outrage.
Mm-hmm.
Like if something happens that needs to be dealt with, he'll take the time. Like when the one guy was like very patently offensive towards Bill and telling her to he straight up punches him in the face. So I see that as taking time for the luxury of outrage. I just thought
that's a good point.
It was really interesting that it was kind of a lie, but I can see where he might think that he doesn't take time for the luxury of outrage. But if he needs to, he does take it.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. And he had just talked to her about her temper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he freaks out. Yeah, that's true. That is true. But I don't know. It's just something that kind of made me think. I think good sci-fi kind of makes you think about, I don't know, your life. And I thought that was a really, really good quote. The good writing there. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and just the fact that you get this humanizing of the doctor, that he admits, like, yep, I've killed people. You just gotta move on. You gotta do what's right for the most number of people. It's almost like Jack Bauer in that way, a little bit. Jack Bauer had, he was just faced with situations and he had to do what he had to do to help the most people. And it's easy for people, to from a distance to sort of criticize the decisions that he had to make in those tough times, but it's what he had to do. So, yeah, this was written by a woman named Sarah Dollard, and she did a great job, I think. Yeah. And so they find more kids, and they learn that someone is paying them to bring attention to the Frost Fair. And these kids are mixed race kids. There's some girls, there's some boys. I think there's like 3 or 4 of them, plus the one that dies. Mm-hmm. And so... yeah, and then they let's see, just that after they do go diving to try to learn more about the creature, and that's when they first kind of see it. And I thought they were pretty good special effects in there. Like I liked when they're down under the water and you just see like the big eye.
Yeah.
Like, that looked really cool, I thought.
Like, it kind of reminded me, I'm sure it wasn't referenced at all, but it kind of reminded me of the scene in Rango when they're underground and there's this huge eye.
Oh, yeah.
But in Rango, you never find out what the huge eye was. That was always one thing that I didn't like about it. I mean, I love the movie Rango. It's one of my favorite movies, but I wanted to know what that eye was. Mm. And that eye in Doctor Who kind of reminded me of that.
Wait. Kubo and Shoestring is also, I've just seen that, but they also have a big eye like that.
I still haven't seen that movie. I really need to.
Yeah, it's really good. So, and you see, I also like all the sort of the green lights of these these fish that are sort of surrounding it. I thought it just looked really cool and had good atmosphere. And
yeah, they had a lot of really good scenes in this episode.
Yeah. So, okay, let's see here. So they sort of go on this investigation trying to figure out who is the one. They realize that this creature is chained up. And so they go on try to figure out who it is that is chained up the creature. And it turns out it's this man named Sutcliffe, Lord Sutcliffe. And what he's doing is he's feeding the creature people, and he's harvesting the waste from the creature as like a type of insane coal. And evidently him and his family have been doing this for generations, creating this super coal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Did that work for you as sort of a scheme behind the whole thing? Did you buy that?
Yeah, it was kind of a weird twist, but I mean, I guess alien poop could be a fast burning coal or a super hot burning coal. I don't know. It,
Why not? It's a
I guess it's
carbon, you know?
whatever you want to imagine could be out there.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, it's not something that I would have imagined up, but I guess it makes for a good plot point.
Yeah. I thought it worked, and I don't think that Sutcliffe is like the greatest adversary ever, but he was suitably kind of swarmy and gross and a good kind of villain, I thought.
Yeah, he was kind of like kind of almost like a Muppet movie villain, like an oil baron who wants to tear down the theater or something because he wants the money from the oil underneath. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what he reminded me of, that kind of a evil rich guy type villain.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. And I did like that the doctor says to Bill, always remember, Bill, passion fights, but reason wins. Oh, that was another good line. Well, then, of course, yeah, and then of course he slugs the guy, which was great. Mm-hmm. So reason didn't win in that case. So let's see here. Another good quote I liked, he said, human progress isn't measured by industry, but on the value you place on a life, an unimportant life, a life without privilege. I thought that was really a really beautiful kind of thought, I guess. Yeah. That I don't know if that bears fruit when you think about the history, certainly of American history, but I guess we have made progress as we have valued life more, and we go from slavery to sharecropping to the Industrial Revolution, where you have children working and you have things, and we hopefully keep improving and keeping value in things more. Yeah. So I guess we are progressing. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. He said that it isn't measured by industry, but the value you place on an unimportant life. So he says, Bill really likes this speech, and she says something like, how many years does it take for you to be able to give a speech like that? Which I thought was good. Let's see here. So then we get this like scheme that Sutcliffe is going to blow up the doctor and Bill. And he's going to masquerade it as this fireworks display or something, and then the creature will be fed. That was sort of fun. It sort of felt like, in me, the Sutcliffe stuff almost felt like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Like, it sort of had an old-fashioned. I mean, it was set in 1814, so kind of appropriate, but I almost had that sort of feel to me.
Yeah.
A little bit. Let's see here. So the doctor wants to know, should they set the creature free? And she says, Bill says, you decide. You're the doctor, like, you decide. And he says, it can't be left to me. It's your people, your planet. And so, they have to she has the one that has to decide it. What did you think of that, of him making her make the decision?
I liked it. It's not something he always does.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be the one to make the decision. Doesn't feel that someone is capable of making what he might consider the right decision.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think he would want to set the creature free and not kill the creature?
Probably because he sees it as a valuable life, because it is unique. It is the only one of its kind that we know of, probably the only one on Earth. So he wouldn't want to just kill it. But there's the dilemma in, if you let it go, what if it does run wild? Mm-hmm. There's no way to know for sure. But he doesn't want to just kill it unprovoked just in case it might, with no proof that it would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because she even says, like, what if it kills 100 people when it's set free? So it's an interesting dilemma for her.
Mm-hmm. There can be those kinds of dilemmas in these types of stories.
Yeah.
Because you're working with stuff that you don't actually know how it's going to react.
Do you think that, in your personal opinion, do you think this was the right choice to make, or would you have? I don't know.
I probably would have made the same choice because I don't want to kill anything that I don't think deserves it. Like, if someone had like a bear or something and it was trapped, I wouldn't want to just kill the bear because it might kill somebody. I'd want to set it free somewhere. So I feel like I probably would have made the same decision.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know what I would do, because I think I would be sort of persuaded. I could be persuaded by the 100 people argument. I think that, I don't know. I could see the value of both sides. So it'd be a hard decision, and you have to make it so quickly.
Yeah.
That would be tough. But anyway, that's what they decide. And then they end up, so Sutcliffe ends up getting eaten by the creature, and they're able to get back home. And Nardole is there, and he says, "You said you wouldn't go off world," and he talks about his vow, and you know, and then the doctor says, "Well, clearly I haven't gone off world. Look at what I'm wearing and everything," and so that was interesting, and sort of more of this weird Nardole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a little more of him. But anyway, and then Bill is looking in the papers trying to find something about what happened with this creature and with the explosion and everything. And we have one more thing to talk about, but and she can't find anything about it at all. And I did love this. Another great quote. It says, "Never underestimate the collective human ability to overlook the inexplicable."
Mm-hmm.
That was another, I thought, really good one.
Yeah, there was a lot of good lines in this episode.
Yeah. And so that was really good. And she did make it so, they did make it so the estate of Sutcliffe went to the orphan kids.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was a really good thing to happen.
Yeah, that was really cute. So then Nardole says, "We need to talk about your oath." And then you see Nardole at what I assume is the vault, right?
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah.
And it's got all of these like combination things, whatever, on it, and lights and stuff, and you hear this bang, 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 bang on the door of the vault. So there's something inside there. Mm-hmm. And he even, he talks to it a little bit. He's like, I can't remember what he said. But I don't know. What did you think of that?
I loved how it ended, even though I really wanted to know more. I want to know what's in there, but I'm willing to wait. But I really liked the cliffhanger-ish ending, not knowing what it is and hearing you get a new piece of information that whatever they're guarding is alive.
Yeah.
Which I thought was an interesting twist. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, and especially when you have this giant creature in the episode.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting that you have this loud, big, because that's like a big door. And for it to bang, 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 I mean, it's got to be pretty heavy.
Yeah. I have no idea what it'll be, but I'm excited to find out.
Yeah, that'll be fun. So, yeah, I mean, was there anything else that stood out to you in this episode? What did you, production design, costumes, what things did you like about it? Other things?
I liked pretty much everything. I thought the setting was great. I loved all the little stands on the lake. I love that it was set on a frozen lake, which is not, I don't know that Doctor Who's ever done an episode like that where you're on ice the whole time.
Yeah, that was very creative.
Kind of a unique touch, and have things underneath the ice. I loved that, the little lights following people. It's kind of ominous, but a really great touch.
And just the sense of like, when they step on the ice, like it felt visceral. It felt it felt real.
Yeah. I also liked the Doctor and Bill's costumes. They weren't entirely period appropriate, but they were close enough, but with enough like modernish flair. I really liked them.
Yeah, that was good, and I liked that it touched on so many different topics and so many different things. It had so much to think about. It's one I think I could watch several times and get different things out of it every time. I've already watched it twice and got different things out of it each time. And I also appreciate that they didn't make the orphans like they weren't little orphan Annie. They weren't annoying. You know, I love Annie for what it is, but I'm just saying like they weren't like cutesy and precocious and whatever.
Well, the one little girl was that one girl with the at the very beginning.
Yeah, I guess.
Your heart adorable.
She was pretty adorable.
She was still trying to lure them out on the ice, so she wasn't like a perfect character like an Annie-like character, but she was adorable. Yeah. They all were pretty cute.
They were cute, but they weren't like annoying. So I was grateful for that. Because sometimes those kind of characters can get pretty annoying pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm noticing with different shows it can be hard to write good child characters.
Yeah,
for some people.
Well, and I thought that Bill had a lot of growth in this episode. Like you really saw her coming from, I mean, to the point where she's making this decision at the end. You see her like really starting to listen to the Doctor, and really, you know, she starts out making all these judgments about him, and I don't know, I just feel like her character is kind of growing in a really, really pleasing way, in a very authentic way, which I think is good.
Yeah, I think this episode did a lot to grow her character.
So good job, Sarah Dollard, writing a good episode. So yeah, that is basically all I had on this episode. But we'll look forward to next week. That'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll. Did you remember the title of next week? I forgot to write it down, but hopefully it'll be another good one.
It has something to do with knocking, like with knock knock or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
The episode revolves around knocking. That's what I know from the preview.
Ooh, with the vault, that should be interesting.
No, I think it was knocking in a different building, but I wonder if they'll tie it back to the vault in some way.
Probably.
Knocking at the vault and knocking in this house with all these, I don't want to call them teenagers because they were probably in their 20s, but young people with knocking going around them. I think they're going to try and do another ghost story. Doctor Who, when they try and do like supernatural type stories, but it's always revealed like it's an alien in the end that has been being mistaken for ghosts or witch or whatever the thing it is. I don't know. I'll be interested to see how they handle this one.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see one. I mean, I guess the last one had some horror elements, you know, with the death and the robots, but it'll be interesting to see if this one is also scary, this upcoming one after this one. So cool. Well, so where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter, John J. North, JONJ, and North, like the direction.
Great. And I will have that information in the description section. You can find me at Smiling LDS Girl on all social media, and then my blog is 54 Disney Reviews. And we have some fun stuff coming up this weekend. This Friday, I am going to be doing a special podcast for Guardians of the Galaxy with my friend from How to Love Comics. And so I'm really excited about that. And then on Saturday, we have the conclusion of our animation tournament that we did the first part last week. We're going to have David and Larry join me again, and we'll determine conclusively the greatest animated film of all time. So that should be fun. And thanks again. I really appreciate you joining me to talk about this really good episode. What would you rank, from 1 to 10, what would you rank this one? What grade?
Probably an 8.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because I haven't seen that many, but I don't know. I think I might even go higher. I'll give it 8.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't generally do like numbered or starred reviews. So I never know if I never feel like I'm doing it right. I don't know.
No, you did great. You did great. I mean, you have way more to go off of than I do. So it's all in fun. So, all right. Well, thanks again. And we will talk next week.
Yep. Thanks for having me.